Hello, my name's Rex the Dog. At the moment, I'm trying to get to 50 subscribers, so if you would, consider subscribing, that would be sick. I'm going to be very thinking out loud today in this one and kind of formulating my own opinions as you go. So I'm not even going to be fully formed on what I'm thinking. So if you've got ideas of what you're thinking, you've got counterpoints to what I'm saying, you've got corrections to what I'm saying, drop a comment below. I'd like to talk to you. Or get involved in the Telegram chat, which is in the description. However, that is the topic of today. So here in Spain, yesterday, as of recording, we had a declaration made in the courts. The Telegram was going to be, they're going to impose a temporary ban on Telegram, pending a full one, as they undergo a investigation. Now, as of recording, that has not happened, and in terms of my prediction, I don't think it's going to happen. But as far as things have been declared, the intention, as far as we know, it is going to happen. Okay, this has put a lot of people in hysteria. They're saying the 18 million Spanish users of Telegram, which to me makes no sense, because the fact you're saying that like a third of Spain is this huge, well, not a third of Spain, but like a huge amount of Spain is using Telegram, to me is just like, I don't know, 18 million doesn't seem right to me, but what the hell do I know? Anyway, the reasoning that they are saying to ban Telegram is not what I expected. It's not a reason I can understand. I love Spain, but I'm going to make some comments here about kind of how some things operate on a governmental level here in Spain. Because a lot of things and a lot of systems and bureaucracy and stuff like that are still kind of operated on the basis there's a Spanish Empire. And the reason for this temporary ban, which hasn't come into effect yet, the reason for this temporary ban and this investigation is 3 of the major TV networks have complained that a lot of their media, a lot of their content that they create and they hold the copyright to is available, on Telegram channels and is shared freely and readily. Which is true, right? Which is true. I'm not saying that like, oh yeah, cool, ban this application, ban this platform, but that is true. So that is the reasoning for this happening, of these these Spanish old, I was going to say old Hollywood. These Spanish, old media companies, wanting to protect, their rights and their status quo and their system and their things they own. Okay. A very, very strange reason, for, that sort of level of censorship, which might set off some pretty strange international precedents for, platforms people can use to communicate, to work, to whatever. When I saw that it was getting banned, I assumed it was kind of more of a security thing, right? Because you look at things that are happening in, for example, the United States at the moment. You look at the pressure that's being put on companies like Apple, and you look at the pressure that's being put on companies like TikTok, right? And reasons because these being like massive, essentially media companies at this point, communication tools, huge all-in-one social media and, hardware and software on the side of Apple, behemoths, which aren't exactly under, a lot of governmental control, which is something that they really, really like in the US, right? So if you look more on the side of Microsoft, although they were trying to get, blocked on the Activision Blizzard merger, but you do generally look at, something like Google, you look at something like Microsoft, they generally play well and play nice with the government and help them out and stay within this kind of straight and narrow. Apple are a little bit more rogue, so they're trying to get them sort of like in line at the moment, and that's really been reflected in the Apple share prices, dropping. And then you've also got, you look at, TikTok, with obviously being, a Chinese-based company, and the US not liking that from a governmental perspective. I thought, I'm not saying I agree with this line of thinking, because I'm not really like a pro-government dude, right? But I could understand that same sort of line of thinking of like unregulated, not encrypted, end-to-end encryption by default, I believe. But, you know, you can have those settings on. It's pretty damn anonymous. You can set up these groups. You can organize. You can share things, whatever. You know, there is, like, a hell of a lot of, like, child pornography and abuse. And a lot of, like, really nasty stuff coming out of, like, some countries. Like, you know, some from, like, Mexico or, you know, all over the world. But, that litters Telegram. So it is a tool that people can use for, you know... I don't care about TV shows being stolen from Spain. I don't give a fuck. But you think about things like, you know, really like, you think about things like trafficking, you think about things like, you know, abuse in sexual videos, you think things about child pornography, you think about all these like really fucked up stuff. Telegram as a platform does enable that. You know, it does like allow a route to do that pretty easily. You know, with other routes takes a lot more barriers. Now, I'm not saying that, like, you know, that Telegram as a platform, like, enjoys this, but is a tool that allows you to do that, right? A knife, I use it for cooking, some people use it for killing, right? So it's like, you know, I'm not equating, like, Telegram morally bad, all right? But it's a tool that can be used, like, in a really, really fucked up way, you know, or organization of, you know, domestic terrorism or whatever the fuck. So, I would have understood from a perspective, like, of like, oh, I could see why, as a government, they would make that move to be like, okay, let's ban this thing because of all of these sorts of reasons. But this sort of reason is very, very fucking strange to me. It's very fucking strange to me. But it does feel like that kind of, like, old Spanish imperialist, you know, sort of mindset that's still, like, very... embedded in a lot of the systems here, even though the, you know, the current operating government is, you know, say it's socialist, you know, but it feels like that to me, you know, protecting the, you know, the big Spanish, you know, terrestrial TV channels. It's a bit, I don't know. I don't know about computers. I'm not a computer guy. Maybe you can see this from me, like, filming on my phone all the time, and there not being any edits, at least so far. I plan to in the future. But people are saying, okay, if this does happen, you know, VPNs, whatever, these are routes to kind of get around it. I don't know anything about that stuff. I probably won't engage with that stuff unless some nerd comes along and installs that on my phone. But... yeah, you know, I understand from a perspective, you know, there's a lot of people freaking out, you know, some people, you know, some admins freaking out because their life's work of making a furry porn group chat is going down the toilet. I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't give two shits about that. I couldn't care, whatever, it sucks to be you. But, like, from a perspective of, like, there is a lot of, like, you know, DIY and kind of punk rock stuff that can happen on, you know, platforms like Telegram. Like, I do find out, you know, this is outside of the furry sphere, but I do find out a lot of stuff about, like, concerts, music, you know, protests, events, a lot of things like that from a bunch of different sort of, you know, groups that I am from the community that I live in. And then, of course, there is a lot of people, like, you know, within the fandom, you look at things like artists, fursuit makers, musicians, a lot of people who are selling things there, and it's a platform because there is such a large furry base on it. There's a lot of eyes on it that people can see, and, you know, for commissions, for avoiding evolving events or things like that. So... There's a lot to be lost for a lot of people on, you know, like a livelihood basis and also a community basis. Yeah, so that kind of stuff, the more DIY punk rock creative stuff, I would mourn for that. You know, I would feel like, oh, okay, I hope those people can be, after getting displaced off Telegram, can find, you know, new homes, whether that's like using Twitter, which is kind of like a Nazi platform. Like, let's be real. Maybe that was a wild thing to say. But hopping onto Twitter or using these other things like Discord or for Affinity, I don't fucking know. But hopefully they can find kind of a spot. If this happens, they can find a spot where they can find the same sort of level of traction. Or they can go down this VPN route and still connect with those people who exist outside of Spain. Or the other countries that have it banned, because it is banned in like Brazil and a few other countries as well. Interesting developments, interesting stuff. I personally do not think Telegram is going to get banned in Spain. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe I'm wrong, yeah. And I'm still kind of thinking through all my thoughts on it. Because if it was suddenly going to disappear off the face of the planet, I don't know how I feel about that, if we're going bigger than this. Because, as I said, that community stuff is a loss. I do believe in people having the right to have these sort of like tools to talk to each other. I do as a whole. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but there are some ways I find like pure anonymity and, lack of accountability and total end-to-end. I think that can be kind of sus, and it leads in, and it can be something that helps enable that sort of like child pornography stuff. I don't know. It's really complicated, so all my kind of thoughts on it are evolving and are constantly evolving and constantly changing. I don't know. I've probably already talked for this about 10 minutes. I've probably gotten nowhere, but we'll see what happens, right? I think by the end of next week, maybe it's banned, maybe it's not, for this investigation. If this investigation does happen, stuff in Spain, again, that kind of like still operating on this sort of like, as if it's this big imperialistic force when it's not, that process will be really, really fucking slow. So if there is a ban for an investigation, that investigation will not happen quickly. Not out of a, purposeful delay process of just like, that's kind of how things operate over here. But anyway, I'm going to shut the fuck up. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd appreciate it. This was really complicated, and as you saw, I was thinking out loud. If you want to think out loud in the comments as well, sick. I'd love to hear some other perspectives, because as you can see, I'm trying to figure it out myself. And of course, the Telegram is in the description below, so you can whatever.